Carl Jung uncovered a painful truth that still echoes for anyone born with deep sensitivity, what we now call empathic ability. This gift of feeling so profoundly carries a paradox that can shatter the soul. The very quality that makes empaths radiant becomes the weapon life uses to wound them. Jung saw it in his patients again and again. People with extraordinary emotional perception were like magnets, drawing others in, only to be punished for the light they carried. He noticed a dark pattern. Empaths attract people who, often unconsciously, hurl their shadows onto them. People who have lost touch with their own feelings. People terrified of their own pain. Become both drawn to and enraged by the presence of someone who refuses to shut their heart down. Jung realized that the brighter an empath's authenticity shines, the more it tears through the defenses others have carefully built. What begins as admiration turns into resentment, and what starts as closeness often collapses into hostility. Jung called this shadow projection. It was not just a passing problem. It was a devastating cycle. People would come to the empath like moths to a flame, spilling their secrets, finding comfort in a presence that felt like home. They'd finally feel seen, often for the first time in their lives. But as soon as the healing began, the unease would set in. The same people who once clung to the empath's light would start mocking them for being too sensitive, criticizing them for being too much, and ultimately abandoning them. To Jung, this wasn't about failed friendships or messy relationships. It was about what happens when a world full of numb hearts collides with someone who refuses to numb theirs. He saw that authentic emotional expression doesn't just inspire people. It threatens them. It calls out their hidden shame. If you've ever been told you're too emotional or too intense, chances are you've been living this truth. The problem isn't that you feel too much. It's that others have gone too far in silencing their own feelings. Jung's studies revealed that most people disconnect from their emotions early in life. They trade vulnerability for survival. They learn to wear masks that society rewards. Confident, controlled, acceptable. But the price is steep. They bury their emotional aliveness so deep that when they encounter someone who still has it, it stings like salt in an unhealed wound. This is what I call the authenticity wound, the buried rage of those who abandoned their truth, projected onto those who still carry it. For empaths, this becomes a kind of trap. Simply by existing, they trigger the pain others can't face. People end up blaming them for feelings that were never the empaths to begin with. Jung saw this again and again. Attacks, criticisms, subtle punishments aimed at the empath, all because their presence reflected back emotions others had long disowned. The cruelty runs deeper still. Many of the same people who lash out at empaths are, on some level, drawn to them precisely because they sense what they've lost. They crave that emotional freedom, even as it terrifies them. They seek out the empath's light, only to resent it once it exposes the darkness they've hidden from themselves. This is Jung's most chilling insight. Empaths are targeted not because of their flaws, but because of their innocence. He called it shadow projection, but I call it the innocence punishment dynamic. Those who have lost their emotional innocence, whether through trauma, betrayal, or sheer survival, often punish those who haven't. They attack not the empath, but the reminder of what they once had and can no longer bear to see. So, what does this look like in the real world? People mocking empaths for crying at beauty when they themselves can no longer feel wonder. friends dismissing their depth as overreacting because they've grown too cynical to hope. Partners offering advice that is really just disguised envy or fear. It's insidious because it often masquerades as care. But beneath it, the truth is always the same. The empath's presence exposes the shadow in others, and the shadow fights back. Jung believed this paradox could do one of two things. It could crush the sensitive soul completely, convincing them to shut down their gift, or it could transform them, forge them into something even stronger, something humanity desperately needs. Because if an empath can survive the punishment of innocence, if they can hold on to their light in a world that tries to break it, they don't just heal others. They remind the rest of us what it means to be fully, painfully, beautifully human. You need to toughen up. The world will eat you alive. You're too trusting. Most empaths have heard words like these. They sting because they're not really about you. They're about the person saying them. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He realized that these weren't acts of deliberate cruelty, but projections of self-hatred. People who have severed their connection to their own feelings lash out at those who still dare to feel. In his clinical work, Jung identified 4 patterns. 4 distinct ways people unconsciously attack empaths for their emotional authenticity. Type 1. The emotional critic. These are the ones who police every feeling. They've buried their own emotions so deeply that seeing someone else express theirs ignites shame. They whisper or shout that you're too much, too dramatic, or inappropriate. I call them the feeling police. Their own numbness is so complete that your aliveness feels like a personal insult. Type 2. The authenticity attacker. These are the mask wearers. They've built entire lives around performance and illusion, hiding behind false personas. When they encounter someone who doesn't need a mask to survive, it threatens their fragile identity. I call them the performance police. To them, your truth is offensive because it exposes their lies. They'll criticize you for being too real, when in truth, it's their facade that's suffocating. Type 3. The vulnerability violator. These are the ones whose hearts hardened long ago. They've been so wounded that openness terrifies them. Instead of protecting that trust, they exploit it, then blame you for being too trusting. Jung saw this pattern often. The empath punished not for wrongdoing, but for daring to keep their heart open in a world that shut theirs down. I call them the trust destroyers. Type 4. The light dimmer. This is the most dangerous kind. These people actively work to weaken an empath's confidence in their gift. They've lost connection to their own inner light so completely that yours becomes unbearable. Through subtle manipulation, they convince you that your empathy is a flaw, a problem to fix, rather than the sacred gift it truly is. I call them the brightness reducers. If you've ever felt others resenting your sensitivity, remember this. Their attacks on your light only expose the darkness they cannot face in themselves. Jung didn't stop at naming the patterns. He warned of the dangers they create, not just for the empath, but for humanity itself. Danger 1. Authenticity. Erosion. Constant criticism erodes self-trust. Over time, many empaths begin suppressing their natural responses just to fit in with people who can't handle authentic emotion. Jung wrote that the empath who abandons their authenticity loses the very thing that makes them valuable. This creates what he called the dimming epidemic, a world where sensitive souls hide their light to avoid hostility, leaving humanity starved of emotional truth. Danger 2. Psychological self-betrayal. This is the cruelest turn of all. After enough attacks, empaths start to believe the lies. They begin to see their empathy as a flaw instead of a gift. They echo the voices that once silenced them, becoming their own emotional assassin. Jung saw this tragedy again and again. The sensitive soul turning its weapon inward. Danger. 3. Collective emotional stagnation. The most devastating danger isn't individual. It's collective. When empaths dim their light, humanity loses its emotional pioneers. These are the people capable of showing us what real emotional aliveness looks like. Jung warned that suppressing them represents humanity's rejection of its own potential. We attack in others what we most desperately need to reclaim in ourselves. Without empaths, emotional evolution stalls. Jung believed protecting empathic individuals was essential to our future. That's why he developed what I call the authentic self-preservation protocol. Phase 1. Recognition and validation. The first step is seeing clearly. The hostility you face is not about you. It's shadow projection. Other people's self-hatred reflected outward. Their resentment is not a reflection of your worth, but of their wound. Criticism, in this light, becomes information about them, not about you. Phase 2. Boundary crystallization. Once you know the attacks aren't personal, you can begin drawing the lines that protect your heart. Boundaries aren't walls. They're shields. They preserve your empathy without letting others drain or distort it. And here lies the heart of Jung's message. Empathy is not weakness. It is not too much. It is what the world is starving for. But to keep it alive, you must protect it. So if you've found people who honor your sensitivity, who celebrate it rather than mock it, treasure them. You've found your tribe. The ones who understand that authentic feeling isn't a liability. It's the foundation of human healing. Carl Jung discovered something crucial for those born with empathic gifts. They cannot survive without what I call energetic boundaries. Empaths need the strength to stand in their truth while shielding themselves from the projections of others. Without this protection, their light risks being swallowed by the shadows around them. For me, it begins with a choice: conscious empathy over unconscious absorption. That means learning to separate genuine feedback. What helps us grow? From attacks born of resentment and shame. Jung named this skill psychological discernment. The moment you can look at someone's criticism and say, "This is truth," or "This is their shadow," you reclaim your power. Phase 3. Selective engagement. Jung taught that the final step is choosing relationships with intention. Sensitive souls must learn to give their heart only to those who value authenticity and to create distance from those who resent it. Because here's the truth: no one benefits when empaths dim their light to make the numb feel comfortable. Our natural expression is medicine for those who are ready to heal, and a mirror for those willing to face themselves. To live this way requires what I call vibrational matching. Drawing close to people who resonate with emotional authenticity, not those who fear it. Jung saw these truths not only in his patients, but also in history. He studied those who embodied empathy in a hostile world. And what happened when they failed to protect it? The case of Saint Francis of Assisi. Integration through compassion. Francis lived with radical empathy, and he was condemned for it. Religious leaders of his time wanted control, formality, and intellectual rituals stripped of feeling. Yet Francis refused to silence his compassion. He cared for the poor, the sick, the broken, and he never apologized for it. Critics called him too emotional, too soft. But Francis saw clearly. Their contempt revealed their spiritual poverty. not his flaws. Jung called this authentic integration. By standing firm in his empathy, Francis showed that love is not weakness. His openness became a spiritual revolution. The case of Vincent van Gogh, unprotected sensitivity. Van Gogh, too, was a man of profound empathy. You can feel it in his letters, see it in the brushstrokes of his paintings. Every color pulsed with emotion. But unlike Francis, Van Gogh absorbed the cruelty of others. Over and over, he was told he was too intense, too sensitive, too much. He believed them. He turned against himself, wounding his own soul with their words. Jung recognized the tragedy. Van Gogh had the vision of a genius, but not the protection to keep it alive. His pain was not proof of brokenness. It was proof of a world that couldn't hold the depth of his sensitivity. Even Jung himself wasn't immune. His ability to see the truth of human nature often threatened those invested in lies. He faced the same choice he described in others: dim his perception to gain acceptance, or honor his vision and risk isolation. Jung chose the second path. He came to understand that preserving his empathic gifts wasn't only about personal survival. It was about advancing psychology itself. His insight gave birth to what I call vibrational sanctuary, the need for empaths to surround themselves with relationships that nourish, not punish, their authenticity. So where do empaths find this sanctuary? Jung identified 3 kinds of allies. 1. Fellow empaths. These are the souls who understand without explanation. With them, you feel relief, safety, recognition. They don't tell you to tone down your feelings. They celebrate them. 2. Emotionally evolved non-empaths. These individuals may not feel as deeply, but they've done the inner work to value sensitivity. They act as bridges, protecting empaths in spaces that might otherwise be hostile. 3. Conscious light appreciators. These are the ones who, regardless of their own abilities, choose to defend authentic emotional expression. They know empaths carry something vital for humanity's evolution, and they choose to stand beside them. Jung even gave us signals to recognize these safe connections. They ask about your inner world with genuine curiosity, not judgment. They treasure your insights instead of mocking them. They protect your energy rather than draining it. They urge you to express your truth, never to hide it. And above all, they see your empathy as strength, not weakness. This is the path Jung laid before us. Not one of hiding, but of protecting. Not one of shrinking, but of standing firm. For empaths, the calling is clear. Guard your gift, honor your light, and walk only with those who can stand in its glow. Carl Jung believed that for empaths, survival isn't about hiding. It's about learning how to share their light wisely. He taught that authentic sensitivity must be revealed gradually, like a flame tested against the wind. Show pieces of your heart, watch how others respond, and notice who cherishes your honesty and who resents it. Some will protect your openness. Others will exploit or criticize it. Jung's advice was simple, but profound. Don't dim your light. Share it only with those who can celebrate it. The goal isn't to fit into every room. It's to find the rooms where your brightness is welcome. For Jung, the empath's growth wasn't just about personal well-being. It was about humanity itself. He believed sensitive souls play a vital role in teaching the world how to reconnect with real emotion. When they succeed, they show us all that sensitivity and strength aren't opposites. They belong together. The 4 stages of light integration. Stage 1. Recognition without suppression. The first turning point comes when empaths stop taking resentment personally. Jung called this projection immunity. The moment you realize that criticism aimed at your feelings isn't truth, but projection, something shifts. The problem isn't that you're too much. The problem is that others have become too little. Stage 2. Boundaries without hardening. Next comes learning to protect your energy while staying open to love. Jung called this selective permeability. It's the ability to welcome genuine emotional connection while recognizing and rejecting disguised attacks. The integrated empath learns how to say, "I'm open to you, but I won't carry your shadow." Stage 3. Community without compromise. The third stage is about choosing your people. Instead of trying to win over those who resent authenticity, empaths begin building connections with those who appreciate it. Jung wrote that evolution requires letting go of the need to be understood by everyone. True belonging doesn't come from numbers. It comes from quality. Stage 4. Service without sacrifice. Finally, there is service. The fully integrated empath gives their gifts from a place of overflow, not depletion. They offer compassion to those ready to receive, but they no longer waste energy demanding acceptance from those who refuse it. Jung saw this stage as cultural healing. Empaths modeling what emotional aliveness looks like, sparking the same flame in others. The dangers along the way. Of course, Jung warned of pitfalls. Traps that can derail the journey if empaths aren't careful. The revenge trap. Some empaths, after realizing how badly they've been treated, lash back. They start attacking numbness, the way others attacked their sensitivity. But projection, no matter which direction it flows, always poisons. The superiority complex. Others fall into enlightened arrogance. They start believing their sensitivity makes them better than those who shut down. Jung cautioned that empathy isn't meant to create hierarchy. It's meant to create healing. The isolation justification. Some decide to withdraw completely, avoiding anyone who doesn't immediately honor their gifts. But total withdrawal doesn't serve growth. Jung taught that real integration means staying open to those ready to receive, without abandoning compassion altogether. The light dimming. The most heartbreaking danger is when empaths, even after understanding projection, still silence themselves. They know why people resent their authenticity, but fear keeps them small. Jung warned, intellectual knowledge isn't enough. Inner strength must be built so the flame can endure the storm. Maintaining the integration, Jung knew that protecting authenticity isn't a one-time achievement. It's an ongoing practice. Empaths must regularly ask themselves, which relationships nourish me and which ones drain me? When should I engage deeply and when should I step back? They need allies. Others who share their struggles, or at least respect them. They must accept the painful truth that some people will never value real emotional expression. And they must remember, their job is not to win everyone over. Their job is to preserve their light so it can continue to burn. Jung once wrote that the empath who guards their authenticity becomes a living reminder that emotional death is not inevitable. They prove to the world that vulnerability doesn't have to end in destruction. Sensitivity can be strength. In the end, the integrated empath carries a torch, not just for themselves, but for everyone still fumbling in the dark, waiting for permission to feel alive again. Carl Jung urged empaths to stop wasting their energy trying to convert people who will never accept their light. His words were simple, yet powerful. The authentic empath does not try to force their light on everyone, but ensures their light continues burning for those who need its warmth. Jung saw empathy not just as a personal trait, but as a force for humanity's collective evolution. Sensitive souls who hold on to their emotional truth in the face of hostility prove something extraordinary. That it's possible to remain alive, even in a world gone numb. They are pioneers, reminding others that the heart can still speak. Guardians of emotional wisdom. Looking through history, Jung noticed a striking pattern. Empaths have always been bridges, carrying the torch of emotional wisdom through times when the world turned cold. They preserved what others had lost, keeping alive a vision of what genuine feeling could be. Over time, the authenticity seen in one individual often blossomed into cultural renewal. What begins as a single heart refusing to shut down becomes a seed for collective healing. Jung called them keepers of the flame. Souls who protect tenderness when society slips into hardness, and who model emotional aliveness when people are finally ready to return to their own truth. Modern echoes. In our era, empaths may be responding to something larger than themselves. Jung believed their sensitivity reflects the buried trauma of the collective, feelings our culture refuses to face. When an empath cries, rages, or aches, it often mirrors what the world itself has pushed underground. Their pain is not theirs alone. It belongs to all of us. The modern world pays a steep price for suppressing emotion. Isolation instead of intimacy, shallow connections instead of real bonds, leaders who prioritize logic while starving for wisdom of the heart. Jung believed empaths point to another way forward, a society where emotion and intelligence walk hand in hand. The gift of authenticity. Jung's greatest insight was this: empaths serve others best, not by numbing themselves, but by standing firmly in their emotional truth. Their authenticity is medicine for a world caught in what he called emotional evolution arrest. While most people disconnect from their feeling nature, empaths survive by staying alive to theirs. At their highest development, they embody what I call luminous compassion. The ability to shine without apology, while also recognizing that resentment often comes from pain, not malice. Instead of shrinking, they hold their ground. Instead of blaming, they extend compassion, even to those who cannot yet bear their brightness. A transformed pattern. Jung saw it firsthand. Many empaths felt cursed, believing there was something wrong with them because others turned against their sensitivity. But when they practiced his integration method, the pattern changed. They stopped mistaking resentment for truth. They realized that hostility toward their emotions was not proof of their flaw, but evidence of someone else's wound. They found their tribe. People who didn't mock their depth, but celebrated it. They began to give their gifts to those who could receive them, instead of begging for acceptance from those who could not. And most importantly, they stopped dimming their authenticity to accommodate a culture addicted to numbness. Jung's final discovery. Jung's most powerful realization about empathy was this: people don't hate your sensitivity. They grieve their own lost connection to it. Their anger toward your aliveness is sorrow for their own buried truth. So if you've ever felt too much, hear this: your gift isn't the problem. The problem is a world that has forgotten how to feel. Your empathy is not a flaw to fix. It's a light to guard, a light this world desperately needs. You are not broken just because others can't handle your depth. Their struggle isn't your flaw. It's the wound of people who've grown accustomed to emotional numbness. The real question isn't whether some will resent your authenticity. It's whether you'll choose to protect your own feeling nature while extending compassion to those who have forgotten theirs. Carl Jung offered a way forward. A path he called integration. It's the journey from unconscious victimhood to conscious service. From hiding your light to sharing it wisely. From suppressing your truth to letting it shine for those who are ready to feel again. You weren't born to shrink or silence your sensitivity. You were born to live empathically alive, to model what real authenticity looks like in a world that desperately needs it. The world doesn't need your empathy muted. It needs it burning strong. Your compassion is not weakness. What others call too much is really their own unhealed grief, projected onto your strength. Jung believed that once you understand these projections, you step fully into who you were meant to be, bridges between the emotional past and the emotional future, keepers of authentic feeling in a culture that has forgotten how to feel. Healers who stay whole while guiding others back to their own wholeness. Jung's most important discovery wasn't simply that people resent empathic authenticity. It was that their resentment reveals a deeper truth. Humanity's grief over its own lost emotional aliveness. Your light is not the problem. Their ability to receive it is what needs to grow. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. The right people will see your sensitivity as a rare gift and celebrate it. The wrong people will reveal themselves through their resentment, which has nothing to do with you and everything to do with what they've buried inside themselves. If you recognize yourself in Jung's description of the empath who attracts hostility, know this: you are part of the very group he believed essential for humanity's evolution. Your presence proves that emotional truth still survives. So hold your light, protect it, share it with those who can receive it. And remember, your empathy is not your burden. It is your gift, and it is medicine for a world that has forgotten how to feel.